efforts, collaboration along the value chain, including pre-competitive research efforts, could help to improve food security and livelihoods in countries where banana is an important staple food and source of income, improve economic and environmental resilience and opportunities, and better connect the entire value chain from producers to consumers. And my idea for this webinar and panel discussion was to have representatives from major stakeholder groups along the banana value chain, from producers, traders, from research, non-governmental organizations to retailers. I asked many different actors, but also get many rejections. And I'm all the happier to have and to welcome the 6 eminent panelists here who have agreed to participate despite their busy schedules. So I would like to thank them for their efforts and contributions to this event. So let me briefly introduce our today's panelists. Miguel Dita, maybe you could, yes, he's senior scientist with Plant Health for Sustainable Banana Production at the Alliance of Biodiversity International and CIAT in Cali, Colombia. Then we have Lena Tripathi, principal scientist and deputy director at East Africa Hub at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Nairobi, Kenya. Then we have Roberto Vega. He's a global value chain strategic engagement head at Syngenta Crop Protection Company in Basel, Switzerland. Maria Andrea Euskatlevi, she's executive director for the Andean region at AgroBio organization in Bogota, Colombia. Then we have Philip Erni. He's the director at CCRS here in Zurich. And George Yaksh, he is the chairman of Biodiversity Partnership Mesoamerica. So we will do 3 presentations focusing on the challenges on the production side and research and development efforts. This will be followed by a round of discussions and then have a second set of presentations focusing on the challenges in the regulatory environment, public perception and collaboration along the value chain. And then also this will be followed by discussions. So now let's start with our first presenter, Miguel Dita from the Alliance of Biodiversity International and CIAT in Cali, Colombia. He will tell us about the different challenges of pest pressure in banana plantations and how we could get to better solutions. Please, Miguel, the floor is yours.
Okay. Are you seeing my screen? Is everything is okay?
Yeah, that looks good, okay? Miguel.
Okay, great. So many thanks. I would like to thank the organizer for the invitation and also a special recognition to Isabel for putting together this nice and diverse group of speakers. So the challenge of pest and pressure in banana plantations. So I don't know who is connected, and I don't know if most of you knows about banana, but we can say that banana is really affected by many pests and diseases, and they are not easy to manage, especially in the tropics. So we also have different production systems, and I can tell you all of them have at least one problem with pests and diseases. So, but we should not ignore that the many areas, mainly for export banana, they have really high intensive banana production system, basically monocrops. So on those kind of environment, of course, the challenges are really, really different and bigger. And when we talk about pest and disease, we could eventually make two separations. Let's say, in those which are already present, and I'm taking the situation now for Latin America and the Caribbean, and those we are already absent but still are challenges. And in the second layer, we can also bring out is how they can eventually control by chemicals or not. And then using those different layers, I will try to show up some of the challenges we have already for the banana production system, in some case making, let's say, a point on Latin America and the Caribbean. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about foliar diseases. There are many foliar diseases, different ones, and this situation is not difficult to find in many areas along the region in different countries. Of course, we know that there is integrated management, and we'll talk a little bit later on that. And we have tested a lot of research, a lot of options, and we can do really better. But unfortunately, in many areas, mainly in smallholder, they don't do it for many, many reasons. And those plantations really becomes a big inoculum operation for neighboring plantations. So it's not difficult to see it. In many regions, we have farmers with different typology, and many of them could be eventually managing well the diseases, but others are not. And this is a challenge in many, many countries. And for Black Sigatoka, let's put an example. We are almost, let's say, 15 years after the introduction or they are, let's say, the disease arrived in the region. And unfortunately, what we have seen is a number of increased number of application with all the implications that it has. Let's say that fungicide resistance, environmental impact, carbon footprint, now with the maximum residual levels, and also importer regulations. And on the top of that, we should not ignore the pressure of climate change. This paper just came out last year, and the models is showing that the infection risk for Latin America and the Caribbean has increased at least almost about 45%. There are a number of diseases which are not really present frequently, which is the banana bunchita virus, not present, but in the case of this one, it's really important to highlight that the disease is very well distributed. It was never eradicated in any country, and in spite we are still free of BBTV or the region, we have the vector, that it means that eventually the disease arrive in Latin America and the Caribbean. We have, let's say, kind of free transportation vehicles to spread the disease in the country or in the region, sorry. So a few slides about Fusarium wilt tropical race 4. We know this is by far the biggest challenge of the banana industry worldwide. And then we see that we know the DTC could be really, 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 really devastating. And for those not familiar, we can say for the Cavendish banana industry, sometimes only start with only one plant infected, but in less than 2 years, depending on different factors, the disease can really destroy the overall banana plantation. This is the case in Laos, where this plantation was destroyed in less than 2 years. And of course, the arrival of TIA4 in Colombia really brought a lot of let's say, concern for the region. And this map is just to zoom in La Guajira, where the disease is present, then all the other main banana production region in Colombia. But we should say that the Latin American and the Caribbean region, we have kind of corridor from the Mexico to the Argentina of bananas, which are susceptible to TIA4. I know most of you are aware of this, of the farm for the to fork strategy. I'm not talking too much about this, but just to highlight some details and how this could eventually impact how we do business in bananas, not only Latin America and the Caribbean, but in the whole banana industry. And of course, many people say, well, you say we should talk about integrated pest management. And sometimes they see that's a magic solution, but I can tell you that this is only feasible when you have research, when we have data, and when we have site-specific approaches, okay? And what we are trying to do in Latin America and the Caribbean, we see a lot of, let's say, possibilities and opportunities in trying to build a kind of multi-stakeholder innovation platform to face those challenges. And we think that it's time to kind of rethink of how we are doing business in bananas in Latin America and the Caribbean, also in the world, and try to rethink, to reshape production systems. And this strategy is quite well elaborated already. We have those components from prevention to management, diversification, trying also to bring new tools to the system, but without forgetting all the impacts that we have on in terms of socioeconomic issues and markets. Of course, it needs a lot of coordination effort, strategic planning, but mainly kind of pre-competitive, let's say, cooperation to really make this happen. Yes, this is just one example that we can do with this platform, like a region platform for diagnostic, bringing, let's say, new tool of multispectral image, drones, let's say, artificial intelligence. We can also really improve how we are doing management, bringing, let's say, new tools. By our planning is really make a lot of effort in soil health. This is quite a neglected area, and we will invest in this as much as we can in the coming years, because we think that soil health really needs more attention and could be kind of essential, not only for soil but also for overall management pests and diseases. And finally, we need to talk about varieties. I think my colleagues will talk a little bit about that later. And when we see those numbers and the global banana production against cultivars, it's hard to see, but we should recognize that we almost rely only on susceptible varieties, and not only for tier 4. It's also for black sigatoka, for BBTV, for nematode, etc. And of course, we always say that resistant varieties, and we always talking about their biodiversity. We should and of course, in this case, we should also recognize that we have different young plants bank, different banana breeding programs, but more effort are needed to really bring those diversity to the consumer's table. And this is not only about just saying, but by doing research, and probably mainly through anticipatory research. And while we are thinking to do so, I think that we should think and see the overall landscapes. Going from, let's say, eventually one disease plant in a plot, but understanding the overall plot management with other pests, with other disease, considering farm ecosystem, considering also multi-farms, because we can have eventually different owners on this property, and of course, without forgetting the overall landscape and watershed. So, and on top of that, we should also understand that we have a different farmer typology, and all of them sometimes have different, let's say, experience of different approach on dealing with pests and disease, and we should not also ignore that. We have seen in the last, let's say, years, people trying to go for we are calling it Cavendish 2.0, etc., or bringing with kind of silver bullet, or with new technology, etc. And we should say that we should take advantage of that. We should see the opportunities, but also we should see the challenges. And in the case of pests and disease, we should also consider that we are dealing with living organisms, and they have incredible capacity to change, to adapt to different conditions. And one example, fungicide resistance or resistance breakdown. So let's also consider that we are dealing with living organisms that they can also change and become eventually a new race, a new strain, a new population, overcoming, let's say, those eventually resistant varieties. As a remark, I would say that we have a scenario that could be business as usual. And should say that I'm taking this, trying to bring in from the World Banana Forum discussion, and my colleague Luc Declercq put this a scenario, and I think it was in some conference a few years ago. And then this is a scenario A. If we stay like this, we could be eventually to a scenario B, where pest and disease become really difficult to manage, and the supply could be reduced. It already happened in some areas because therefore, and the price could be eventually very high. And fortunately, we can also have the scenario C, when we can control the disease through improved farming practices, diversification of varieties, and we can, let's say, reach fair prices and distribution. And I fully believe that this platform, or this kind of, let's say, innovative collaboration mechanism can really help to achieve this scenario Z. In, of course, for that we need more investment on research and bring really with science-based solutions. With that, I would like to finish, and also thanks very much all of you for your attention and for the opportunity to share with you some insight on pest and disease. Many thanks.
Yeah, many thanks to you, Miguel, for this very interesting presentation. And now we would shift to Nairobi, to Lena Tripathi from the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. And she will tell us about the state of art of biotech research in bananas in Africa, the potential impact, and the regulatory environment. Please, Lena, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Isabel, for kind introduction, and also inviting me for making this presentation and share some of the success stories, I will say, what is going on at IITA for control of diseases and pests. So I will mainly talk about the regulation and impact of biotech bananas in Africa. As the first speaker talked about already, that the banana production is severely constrained by many pests and pathogen, and particularly where a number of them are coexisting. So if you go to the farmer's field in Africa, or even globally anywhere, you will find more than one pest or pathogen in the same field. And so this diagram actually shows that, like multiple color dots, and that means, like, they have lot of pests and diseases in the same place. So that's why we feel like the biotechnology can offer some tools for the improvement of bananas, and particularly the modern breeding tool can be applied for the improvement of banana bypassing the natural bottleneck of traditional breeding. And when I say the modern breeding tools, that includes the transgenic as well as the genome editing. But what I would like to emphasize here, that these are not the silver bullets, So for sustainable intensification of crop productivity, we have to use all different types of tools available in the toolbox, including the conventional technologies and the biotechnological application. So at IITA, our genetic improvement team, so now here I will focus more on the disease resistance. So we have everything in place. So like, okay, we start with the selection of the resistant varieties based on the germplasm available either in our gene bank or in our partner's gene bank. Then we have a very strong conventional breeding program at IITA. And then we apply the genetic modification, which is the transgenic, as well as the gene editing. So we are working on different diseases and pests, like resistant to bacterial wilt, so which is the Xanthomonas wilt, nematode resistance, the control of banana bunchy top virus, as well as the aphids, which are the vector for spreading the banana bunchy top virus. So these are some of the research ongoing on using transgenic technologies. But for the editing, which is comparatively newer tool, we are focusing for banana streak virus, also the banana xanthomonas wilt, the fusarium wilt resistance, and as well as the black sigatoka resistance. So our focus is actually to develop improved banana varieties with broad spectrum resistance to various diseases and pests. So we are talking about multiplexing here. So I will give like maybe a few examples, maybe two, one for the transgenic and one for the genome editing. So the example I picked is a banana xanthomonas wilt. It is a bacterial disease caused by Xanthomonas campestris pathovar mucicerum. And this disease actually was first reported in Uganda in 2001. Before that, the disease was still present, but it was quite contained in Ethiopia. So initially, it was reported on NSAID, which is a closely relative to banana, and then it was jumped to bananas. But since it is reported in Uganda, it is spread pretty fast to the other neighboring countries like Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DR Congo. And the economic losses based on these diseases can be as high as 80%, which are reported in DR Congo, and about 70% in Uganda, but then in other countries it's between 40 to 50%. So the control of disease is quite important because the total economic losses were estimated somewhere between 2 to 8 billion US dollar over a decade. And that's the scenario normally you see, like, once the disease is in the field, it spreads pretty fast, and a complete devastation of the whole banana plantation. And then there is no other remedy than to uproot these plants and leave the field fallow for a few months before the new banana plants can be planted. So far, there is no resistance in the cultivated bananas. Some resistance have been found. So like one of the diploid banana wild type Musa balbisiana has resistance to this disease. And as well as recently, I think there are also some tolerance has been reported in other banana wild type, the diploid bananas. So we have tested several transgenes from other species, transferring them into the banana. But here I will maybe focus on two, which is the PFLP, plant phoredoxin-like protein, and HRAP, hypersensitive response assisting protein. These two are the defense genes from capsicum annum, the bell pepper, and we have transferred them into the banana for providing resistance to the BXW disease. So we have generated the transgenic bananas. We tested them initially in the glass house and also in the laboratory conditions. And then we have actually tested them in the confined field trials in Uganda and Kenya. So this is the picture from Uganda and this is from Kenya. So this is the transgenic banana. So what we did, we have planted these transgenic bananas under the field condition, and then we have challenged them by artificially inoculated the transgenic plants as well as the control non-transgenic plants at the pre-flowering stage. And then the control plants actually started showing the symptoms of wilting of the plant, whereas majority of our transgenic plants didn't show any symptom, as you can see from this picture. And majority of the control plants, because we inoculated them at the pre-flowering stage, so they just wilted in few months' time and didn't produce any bunches. But even though some of these control plants produce bunch, they were having symptoms. So here you can see premature ripening of the fruits, but also the rotting of the fruits as well. And the upper panel, this is our transgenic bunch, which didn't show any symptom of the bacterial disease. So this project, we were working in collaboration with NARO in Uganda and CALRO in Kenya. We started quite early with the gene discovery and then the proof of concept, as well as the freedom to operate. So that means arranging the license for these genes. So we finished almost the research phase now, and initially we tested these genes individually, but then as you know that the single based resistance, there are high chances of breaking down of those resistance as the bacteria evolve. So that's why once we have the proof of concept with these two genes, actually we stack them and prepare the new constructs by stacking these two genes. And also for the proof of concept, we used a variety called sucalindese because that's easy to transform. But for the product, actually, we moved on for the farmer preferred matoke varieties, which are more commonly grown by the farmers in East Africa. And then we have developed the events, and currently we are at the event selection stage. So we are into the product development, and we side by side, we also started working on the regulatory science. And we have developed the regulatory strategy and the stewardship strategy as well. And if everything goes well, I think our plan is like in 2022, 2023 to launch the product. So quite early enough, we also did the potential adoption study. So the team of socioeconomics from IITA, they did the ex ante impact analysis, which is published in PLOS One. So if anybody is interested in more details, can go there. So there we have we asked this question of willingness to adopt of this GM bananas resistant to BXW and to the growers first. So about 65% of farmers says that they will adopt immediately, and 19% say yes, but at a later stage after seeing the result from their neighboring farmers. And then about 16% farmers says not at all, which is still not very bad because 16% is not that big number. And then we also projected the adoption rate of BXW, and we say like, okay, it can start from, it will range from 21 to 70%, and with the ceiling adoption rate up to 100% in few years time. Which is quite interesting here is because this was done in all the 6 different countries where this disease is present, including Burundi, DR Congo, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. And the adoption rate was pretty high, was estimated to be pretty high in DR Congo, which is the country where even the biosafety regulations are not there, So for farmers, it doesn't matter, whether the biosafety regulation is there or not. For them is that how badly they need this, the resistant varieties. So from here, we also, it was very obvious to see that, the country which was hit the highest by the disease, that's the country where the adoption rate was highest as well. So aggregate benefits vary substantially across the target countries, ranging from $20 to $953 million, highest in the countries where the disease incidence and the production losses are high. So the main beneficiaries of this technology development are farmers and the consumers. Both of them will benefit, and then the consumers will benefit actually more than the farmers because of the reduced prices if the yield will increase because of the adoption of the resistant varieties. So this study actually clearly indicate that the investment in the development of the disease-resistant variety is economically viable. So a similar study has been conducted by IFPRI, It is just published this year in May 2020. So it's a discussion paper from IFPRI. And they have also clearly shown that BXW resistant GM bananas can benefit the farmers as well as consumers in Uganda. So this study actually focused on Uganda, and they estimated the average annual benefit of approximately 10 million US dollar. And they also mentioned in that study that the adoption of the BXW resistant banana can have impact on poverty. An ex-ante economic study showed that about 100,000 people could be lifted out of poverty annually if this BXW resistant bananas are adopted. However, the delays in the R&D or the regulatory and the adoption can have significant impact on the outcome. So this figure shows that, if there is a delay in the regulatory and the research and development, there will be significantly like 49% less benefit, and if the adoption is delayed, then there is actually about 25% losses in the net benefits, which is actually quite huge. And then the Uganda has banana is very, very important in Uganda, and they have about the production value about 600 million US dollar up there. And so economic study shows the new biotech solution could add up to 1 billion USD by once this variety is released and adopted in Uganda. So I think it's very important here at this point to also know that, because the adoption of the GM crop depends upon the biosafety law and the availability of. So this picture shows where are the GM crops cultivated globally. So you can see all the countries where they are highlighted in yellow. These are the countries growing GM crops. So when it comes to Africa, actually it's Sudan and South Africa are growing at large scale the GM crops, but the Kenya and Nigeria has just added to the list. So BT cotton has been approved in Kenya, and then in Nigeria is BT cotton, as well as the BT cowpea is approved last year for commercialization. Okay, so now I will quickly jump to the another technology, which is a newer technology of genome editing. So we started working on genome editing of banana. We started the project in 2015, and that is also the first approval in Kenya for genome editing for the virus control. And so we developed the system first, genome editing system for banana. And in this case, actually, we are targeting a visible marker called a PDS, is 5-gene desaturase. So this gene actually, it is present in the beta carotene pathway, and it is also involved in the green. So when this disease is functional, actually the plants are green. But if we make the gene non-functional by knocking out, then actually the plants are albino. And that is actually very good visible marker. So we use this marker for developing the genome editing technology for different type of bananas, like desert bananas, which are AAAs like Cavendish, but also the Sukalendisi, which is another desert banana grown in Africa, but also for plantain, which has a B genome. So we have also developed the technology for plantain. So we have designed the reagents based on the sequences of this gene in banana, and then we have actually confirmed the targeted mutations based on the sequencing result. And now we are actually testing this using for bacterial wilt as well as the fusarium wilt. And our plan is that maybe by next year, we should take some of these genes for the field testing in Kenya. So I think the one example which I will give here is the banana streak
Maybe
virus.
Lena, sorry, one more minute. So our next speaker has enough time. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So for the streak virus, it's a double-stranded DNA virus, and it integrates into the B genome of plantain. And so when this virus is present and in an integrated form, like what you can see here, normally the plants doesn't show the symptom, but as soon as it comes into the episomal form, then the plant develops the symptoms. So this is a big problem for the germplasm movement. So the strategy we followed is that we developed we have actually knocked out this integrated virus by making it inactivated, by actually creating the mutations into the integrated virus. So we have characterized this the plantain called Gonja monjaya, and we have seen that this was the integrated pattern, and it doesn't have any episomal form, and that's why this plant was not showing the symptom. But then when the plant is stressed, which can be the environmental stress, the plant developed the symptoms. So we have generated the genome edited plant using the cell suspension. So we have delivered the plasmid-based, the CRISPR-Cas9 reagent into this cell suspension and then generated the complete plant. And so the plant were pretty normal in the glass house. So these are our genome edited plant, and these are the control plants. And then we have further characterized these plants to show the targeted mutation through sequencing. And then after that, we have stressed these plants in the glass house. And then this is the wild type non-edited plant. And then here you can see very clear the streak virus symptoms, whereas our majority of mutant plants, like about 75% of the plant, didn't show any symptom, whereas a few mutant lines showed the symptoms. And so we noticed that, if we have only created the mutation in ORF1, open reading frame 1 and 2, the plant showed the symptoms. But when we have the mutation in the open reading frame 3, the plant didn't show any symptoms. So which also says that, that is very crucial. Open reading frame 3 is very crucial. So our target was aspartic protease, which actually the open reading frame 3 encodes a polyprotein, and aspartic protease actually cleave post-transcriptionally to make the proteins functional. So if we have made aspartic protease non-functional, then we have disrupted the function of the other proteins as well. And we have confirmed that with the virus load using PCR and RT-PCR. So right now we are improving the parents of the plantain by making this integrated banana streak virus inactivated. So we are now improving the tetraploid parent and as well as the improved diploid to make actually the improved triploid parents. And here our final product will be non-GM. In the similar fashion, now we are actually transferring the information from the wild type Musa balbisiana into the cultivated type using the CRISPR-Cas technology. We have identified some of the target based on the comparative transcriptome profiling, and now we are developing this. We have some results going on in the glass house. So this is almost the last slide. This shows the global overview of legislation for genome editing. So there are a lot of countries which are shaded green here. These are the countries where the genome edited crops are not regulated as GMO if the foreign gene is not integrated in them. And then the countries which are in yellow, these are the countries where discussion are ongoing. And that's where the Kenya and Nigeria in Africa also fall. So these are the guidelines are under development, and they are also very much likelihood that if no foreign DNA are integrated, then they will be not regulated as GM, except for the countries which are in red, like which is the European Union and New Zealand, where actually the genome edited crops are also regulated as GM. So this is a very powerful technology. I will say is an emerging tool which can be used for the improvement of bananas. So in the end, I would like to acknowledge the team working at IITA for plant transformation, bioinformatics, and virology, but also our partners from Uganda, Kenya, but also the advanced labs like UC Davis and Taiwan, and also the support from USAID and CGIAR research program on roots, tubers, and bananas. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lena, for this most interesting presentation. I also would like to tell everyone that the question and answer section can be used to raise questions and comments. Now our third presenter is Roberto Vega from Syngenta Crop Protection in Basel. And his speech will focus on how the research and development industry can contribute to a more sustainable banana production. Please, Roberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Isabel. Just checking my audio. Is it working well? Okay. I think the answer is yes. First of all, thank you very much, Isabel, for the invitation, and to CCRS for this opportunity. It is a pleasure to be with you today. My presentation is not going to be as exciting as the last two presentations, but I hope that I can at least bring the attention to how the industry, our industry, can support the production of more sustainable bananas. Maybe before I start, I just want to share, as Isabel mentioned, I've been with Syngenta, but I have 15 years of experience working in the banana sector. So I've been in the middle of many of these discussions, probably not as technical, but definitely trying to understand how can we do banana production more sustainable in the long term. So maybe to start, let me share some news that probably some of you already know, just to understand who is Syngenta, and I think this is already answering the question of how the industry can support. So Syngenta Group, or Syngenta Crop Protection, is actually part of Syngenta Group. So it's a relatively newly created organization, and that was officially launched this year in the middle of the pandemic, unfortunately. And it is, as you can see, it is the integration of 4 different business units. Let me just point there. Of course, Syngenta Crop Protection, based in Basel, which is very much focused on the development of CP, but as you will see later on, also other solutions, particularly digital solutions, where we're investing quite a lot of money today. Syngenta Seeds, which is today the number 3 largest seed company in the world. We have Adama as part of the group. So Adama is also a CP company, is the largest generic CP organization existing today. And then we have the Syngenta Group China, which is working as an individual organization. And basically, the reason why we have this organization is because all of the rest, all of the organizations mentioned before, are really working as a group directly in China. So it's a one completely integrated company, if you want. So as I said before, yes, we're very big in seeds, but we also are the number 1 organization in CP, with operations, global operations in 100 plus countries. And also interesting to mention is that in particular Syngenta in China, we are also very active in fertilizers. So this is, Syngenta is not known to be a fertilizer company. We are not a fertilizer company, but Syngenta Group does have one business unit that is looking at fertilizers. So that is also important to comment. And again, let me just share with you the new version of the Good Growth Plan. The Good Growth Plan was a program launched by Syngenta in 2014. So the first period of that program was running from 2014 to 2020. So we are finishing the first version of the program as I'm speaking. And actually, we revised the program and we launched a second version of this program in this year that is going to be running until 2025. So, so you see, this program is based on three main pillars. The first one is the acceleration of innovation for farmers and for nature. The first element of this program or component of this program is the investment of $2 billion in sustainable ag breakthroughs from now to 2025. That means developing approximately 2 new sustainable technology breakthroughs per year, which is quite aggressive. Today we have around, if I'm not wrong, I think it's 1.2. That's the average. So it's really going up to two new solutions yearly. And I'm pretty sure that most of you know that from the moment that an organization starts talking about one particular issue and one particular solution to the moment that that solution is in the market, we're talking about 10 to 12 years. So it's a really lengthy process to have the products in the market. And the last point in this, under this pillar is striving for lowest residues in crops and in the environment. And I would just like to refer to the presentation of Dr. Dita, where he presented the European Union Farm to Fork strategy, which is actually pushing the companies, the sector, to reduce residues in crops. So we consider that is definitely something that we want to support, and that's why it's part of our strategy. But it's not only in crops, but it's also, as I mentioned before, whatever that we are leaving in the soil, whatever that we're leaving, or in water bodies, we want to definitely reduce this as much as possible. The second big component is striving for carbon neutral agriculture. And I would actually prefer to refer to reducing our environmental footprint, because it's not only about carbon emissions, but as you can see, we're talking about supporting, first of all, measuring greenhouse gases emissions, but also supporting the capture of these greenhouse gases emissions and the mitigation of these greenhouse gases emissions in the ag sector. As I said before, I prefer to talk about environmental footprint because we have components like the second one that you see here, which is enhancing biodiversity and soil health, with a very specific target of 3 million hectares yearly. And the last element of this pillar is, as I mentioned before, we're working on reduction of greenhouse gases, and that also applies to our operations. So we want to reduce in 50% greenhouse gases produced in our own Syngenta operations, which also includes farms as well, where we multiply our seeds. And another piece that you probably don't know is that Syngenta is a big flower company. So we have operations in Kenya, we have operations in Latin America, and that implies having also farms. So we also are working in the reduction of our emissions in our own farms. The third element, which is also quite relevant to the discussion, is everything that we're doing in terms of applicator safety of people, if you want to call it that way. So it's really helping people to stay safe and healthy. And this goes in different directions. So we have, of course, one first commitment, which is really looking at our own operations and working towards zero incidents in our operations. Secondly, we have a target of training 8 million farmers every year. So we do training activities globally in every country where we operate. And depending on the country, depending on the setup, that's the way we do the training. So in many cases, you're going to have Syngenta technicians, stewardship people, stewardship teams, and commercial teams doing the training themselves. We have our own methodology to do the trainings activities, but in many other countries, we do cooperate with other organizations. So if we go to China, there's a strong collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture. There's a strong collaboration with universities in China. If you go to Latin America, you're going to see that we do trainings together with all the partners of the industry through CropLife, or we also do collaborations with universities, and we extend the knowledge through these universities. Of course, this is very relevant for these questions because particularly when we talk about something like TR4, we know that biosafety measures are today the only real proven solution that we have. So really, the extension of that knowledge is something that we do through the training activities. These training activities, as you can imagine, are pretty much focused on the safe and responsible use of pesticides, which is our core business, and is definitely the riskiest of our activities. So that is there's a strong commitment or a strong component on the use of pesticides in a responsible manner. But then we also have other measures and other training activities focused more on soil conservation, on water stewardship, and even on biosafety measures that are meaningful, particularly for this question today. And something that I want to mention, and again, I think is very important to talk about collaboration in this context, is that we have a cross commitment. It's more about the way we are going to be achieving the 3 pillars, which is really focusing on partnering for impact. So we understand that no individual organization is going to be able to solve all the issues that we're facing today. The only way to really do it is looking at this from an ecosystem point of view, and really trying to understand who are the different participants of the value chain and how can we maximize the knowledge, experience, resources of each of these participants as stakeholders in the value chain, including not only the private sector, including not only producers, or in this particular case, the agrochemical industry, but also organizations like academia, R&D, and civil society organizations who also play a role in this discussion. And just to highlight a couple of partnerships that that are relevant for this conversation. We launched a partnership with the Nature Conservancy, a global partnership with the Nature Conservancy very recently. And what I think is important about this partnership, talking about sustainable agriculture, is that TNC is becoming, if you want, some sort of an auditor for Syngenta R&D machine. So the commitment that we have with the Nature Conservancy is that the development of new solutions that Syngenta is bringing to the market is going to go through the eyes of TNC, as I said before, basically as our auditor. And this is to make sure that the new developments in the industry, or at least in our company, are really responding to the needs and expectations from society. And that's why we're using a CSO as the one validated that statement. Another important collaboration that we just launched this year, very recently again, some months ago, is a global partnership with Solidaridad, the Dutch NGO. Pretty sure that you all in the banana business know Solidaridad well. And the reason why is because Solidaridad has been quite active in the industry, of course. They have been quite active in the World Banana Forum, even part of the steering committee of the World Banana Forum, and this more in the direction of workers' rights. So we have a nice collaboration with Solidaridad, a global partnership with them, and I'm just highlighting this because I think that this type of partnerships can definitely unlock opportunities for collaboration with other members of the value chain. As I said before, one of the commitments of Syngenta is investing more in developing sustainable solutions for agriculture. And something that I want to highlight, I'm not going to be talking about pesticides, and I'm not going to be talking about those solutions because conventional pesticides, as you can imagine, is something that is basically in a constant developing machine. And whilst we do have constantly solutions that are being developing and are being registered in the different countries, particularly Latin America, clearly because of the importance for the banana industry. There are a couple of elements that I would like to highlight in the coming slides. One is what we're doing in terms of digital solutions, which I think is critical for this conversation. We have a set of services and tools that we have been developing. If you want as an additional type of services to the ones that we provide today, and again, something that probably most of you are not connecting Syngenta with, but that have resulted to be very positive for the food industry. So as you can see, I mean, we have systems that that can be used from farmer engagement to develop insurance for farmers, but also to be able to report progress on your programs. So let me just highlight or share a couple of them with you. The first one is LandDB, which is a farm management system that is used for sustainability metrics. And as you can see, I mean, the way we have been using LandDB, particularly in North America and also here in Europe, is basically as a system to collect data from the field. And this has been quite interesting because we have connected it with a couple of other systems, one that I'm going to be mentioning in the coming slide. But what you can do with LandDB is not only the data aggregation, but really using this data to communicate to the growers and really provide information on how the farm is progressing. And also something that is quite important for the industry is that you can use these systems to support your voluntary sustainability strategies. And basically you can customize the reports, and you can use these reports to respond to the needs of the Rainforest Alliance or the Fair Trades or the Global Gaps in order to have a more timely analysis of the information and collection of the information. So visibility that, as we know, we are still not there in the industry, at least in banana industry. We have been using these systems with other fast-moving consumer goods companies with very excellent results, because most of them are, again, responding, or they have to be certified to one of these relevant standards. The system that I would like to highlight now is FarmShots, which is basically a satellite imagery application. And FarmShots has been used already for some years, particularly, as I said before, North America, but we also have big operations with FarmShots in Brazil and China. But we introduced FarmShots also in Latin America recently, in 2009. I mean, when I say recent, I'm talking in R&D terms. And the first round of FarmShots was introduced in Costa Rica. And basically, we are using it as an environmental assessment initiative, highlighting or integrating 7 different indicators that you can see over here. So from the farm location, also mapping infrastructure, urban areas, but going down to buffer areas. So really trying to incorporate all these elements. And as you can see today, most or some of the leading companies are already using this system. And basically the system, as I said before, is a very good solution to really have a daily mapping, a daily understanding of what is happening in your plantation. So it's quite powerful in terms of visibility, but also, as I said, as I also mentioned, it can also be used to support your environmental programs that you have to put in place in order to comply with requirements from voluntary sustainability standards.
One more minute.
One more minute and that's it. So the very last one is, I just wanted to highlight that in the developing of solutions, in addition to everything that we're doing in the digital ag environment, Syngenta has been investing quite a lot in biological solutions. And this is brand new news. I think this announcement was launched, I think, 2 weeks ago, one week ago at most. And it's basically the acquisition of Balagro, which is one of the largest biosolutions company in Europe, in Italy in this case, by Syngenta. So now we are integrating Balagro into our solutions. We already have a nice portfolio of biological solutions. We have biostimulants that are being used already in Latin America in bananas. But of course, we clearly understand that if we really want to go into an IPM approach, we need to keep on adding more biological solutions to our portfolio to really have a more comprehensive portfolio for the farmers. One more minute, Isabel. That was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roberto. And as we are running late, I would like to continue with our next presenter. And it's Maria Andrea Uzcategui. She is the Executive Director for the Andean region of the Agrobio organization located in Bogota, Colombia. And she will speak to us about the biotech regulation in Colombia and the public perception, and if there are any opportunities for the banana industry. And in principle, the presenter have 10 minutes, but until now, everybody has surpassed. So, and I would like also to announce that this session is being recorded, and we cannot go beyond 5 p.m. because the organizers have to attend another meeting afterwards. So, Maria Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Isabel. Good morning to all of you, and thank you, Isabel, for the invitation. For me, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Banana is not really my topic, but I will talk a little bit about the biotech regulation in Colombia and the opportunity that this crop has in this country. The biotech regulation in Colombia has been implemented since more than 25 years in Colombia, but after the ratification of the Cartagena Protocol in Colombia, the regulation that is working right now is the implementation of this under the Decree 4525 from 2005. This decree has established 3 authorities and the National Biotechnical Technical Committees. And it depends of the use of the GM crops, so it has a different authorities. If the crop is used for agriculture, livestock, fishing, commercial, forest plantation, and agroindustry, the authority is the Agriculture Ministry, but right now is in the technical arm of the Agriculture Ministry, which is ICA in Colombia. And if the use of the GM crops are for environmental purposes, the authority is the Environmental Ministry. And if the use of the GM crops or the food derived from this crop is for use in health or human food, the authority is the Health Minister, right now in charge of INVIMA. It's called the entity here. So the function of these committees is to review the risk assessment documents, request additional complementary information, review the prevention measures and management of the possible risks, and then recommend the competent authority to issue an authorization. As you can see here, since 2000, we have been working in approvals in Colombia. It has been increasing year after year. The 3 authorities, or mainly the 2 authorities, because the environmental ministry doesn't have the first submission of a GM crop for environmental issues received. So mainly ICA and INVIMA have been working for the last 20 years in the review and approval of GM crops, for food, feed, and planting. The approval process of GM crops in Colombia is step by step and case by case. It means it is not the same to approve soybean than a maize, or it is not the same to approve a insect-resistant maize than an insect-resistant soybean. So it has to be reviewed case by case and step by step. So the submission has to be through ICA. ICA has the responsibility to receive the documents, review them, and then pass them to the National Committee of Biosafety. After this first step has to go to the biosafety stage, where the developer has to demonstrate that it accomplished with the aims that the develop was done, has to do some field trials, has to do some research and demonstrate that it works for the target organisms and doesn't work for the non-target organisms. In Colombia also, we have a different, not a different, but an extra step, and it has to be proved in the different regions in Colombia. So it is not a unique approval for the country. It has to be approved in the different regions in Colombia where it has to, or where the developer wish to commercialize. After the biosafety steps, we have to go to the agronomic evaluation to prove the development of the crop and the efficacy of the crop. Then it has to go to the semi-commercial stage, then commercial stage, and then we have also regulation for the surveillance and monitoring of the crops. The approval of a crop in Colombia lasts in average from 3 to 5 years. It depends on the crops, and it depends of how the seasons has been here. Which crops do we have approved in Colombia? We have 5 crops approved in Colombia. The first one was the blue carnation in 2002. I want to say that the blue carnation is only planted or produced in Colombia for exports. So they are not commercializing the blue carnation here. It has a good market in Europe and Asia, but it is not commercialized in Colombia. The second crop approved in Colombia was cotton, then maize in 2007, then blue roses in 2010, and soybean in 2010. Also to remark here that soybean is approved in 2 regions in Colombia, but is not planted yet or is not commercialized. Which characteristics do we have in Colombia? For cotton and maize, we have the herbicide tolerant, the insect resistant, and the 2 traits stacked in the same crop. For flowers, we have the change of the color, blue roses and blue carnation. And for soybean, we have the trait of herbicide tolerance. Where are they planted? Crops in Colombia are right now in most of the regions. 21 departments or states in Colombia are planting GM crops, mainly corn. 6 departments are planting cotton, and 1 department is planting flowers. Last year, we got more than 100,000 hectares of GM crops in Colombia. Maize were more or less 88,000 hectares planted in Colombia, and cotton 12,000 hectares in Colombia. Flowers are as I said, only 12 hectares, and all of them are for exports. About gene editing in crops, we have a resolution to regulate them. It is a process or a consultation that the developer has to submit to ICA. And the regulation is basically, if the final product does not have a DNA, it doesn't have to go through the GMO regulation. But anyway, if along the development, the developer has transfer or inclusion of DNA foreign, it has to be reviewed by the authority. It has to be registered by the ICA, and is the authority who has to give the final concept about it. The process is very easy. Well, the developer has to be registered in ICA. It has to fulfill the requirements of the submission. After 30 days, the ICA or the authority will review the documents and will give them some explanation about how the process goes, or will ask the developer if they need to submit more information about it. And in a time of 60 days, ICA will inform the developer about the evaluation and will give the concept. If the ICA decide that it doesn't have foreign DNA, the product has to go through the conventional breeding regulation. But if it has, or if it is a GMO, it has to go through the GMO regulation. Until now, we have 2 submissions in ICA. One is the maize, and the other one is a rice developed under gene editing techniques, and both of them has been approved or has been given a positive concept that they are not GMOs and they can go through the conventional regulation in Colombia. What are the opportunities for the banana industry? As a biotechnologist, I have to say that they have many opportunities in Colombia. Right now, we have a regulation where researchers or scientists can work on modern biotechnology in crops. The technical branch or the technical authority has the capacity to review the application and give the positive or negative concept in Colombia about this development. So right now there is opportunity to work in different challenges that the banana industry has in Colombia. Challenges, for example, to have banana resistance to illness or bacteria or fungi attacks. We have the opportunity to develop banana resistant to climate stress. It doesn't matter, it has to be drought or a lot of water. And we have also the opportunity to produce banana resistant that allows the production of banana to be more sustainable. So there are possibilities to work on that, but the problem is who is buying this banana. Most of the banana produced in Colombia, 80% of the banana produced in Colombia is exported to Europe. And in Europe, they don't want a transgenic or edited crop, or they have a very, very polluted perception about these modern techniques. So it will be difficult for them to sell them to Europe. So they have to do a balance between what they can produce there and what they can sell to Europe. So it will be good if they can start to work in these modern techniques for banana, but for them, it will be difficult to sell them to Europe. So I will try to talk about a little bit the perception that many people has about the technologies. They think that they are not natural. They are okay. They think that they are okay. They think that they are not natural. They think that they are produced through syringe and they can mix different crops. They think that they produce cancer, that they produce allergies. But the real thing about the GM crops is that They have more than 25 years of safe use, more than 22,050 institutions warranty its safety, more than 2,000 studies have evaluated its safety, more than 155 Nobel laureates support them, and there is no one case with scientific evidence that they produce a negative impact in health, human health, animal health, or environmental health. So we have to discuss, or we have to try to deal with these myths and misinformation and give more weight to the science. The most important thing there is information and education are key. And many of us are responsible of that. We have to communicate, we have to work together that the people understand the value of this technology, the benefits that it can bring, and try to avoid this misperception about the technology. So all of us are responsible about what we are doing and what we are using. And I think that technology, biotechnology, is a very important tool for the development of different improved crops. So we all should be committed that we have the responsibility to inform, we have the responsibility to try to translate this scientific language in a language to everyday life, deliver clear, precise, and contextualized message to allow the appropriation and use of the knowledge. So I will say, and I will end with this slide, that science, technology, and innovation are very important for technology. We have to try to use all of the tools that we have to do agriculture more sustainable tool or work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Maria, for this most interesting presentation. And we go straight to Philip Ernie, who is the director of our institute, the CCRS, and he will speak about the role of regulation and if there is any hope for gene-edited bananas in the current regulatory environment.
Thank you, Isabel. Let me see if I find my screen here. Thank you, Isabel. I have to find my screen here. Strangely, it's not going online. Oh, it's not working. Could you open it?
I can see you.
But the presentation, I don't see where, let me see. Oh, no, there is something coming. Let me see if I find my presentation. Can you see?
Your screen.
Yeah, I shared the screen. You don't see it now.
We see it.
Yet.
You see it? Let me see. Because it's now, that's really strange. Now it should come. Let me see.
Yes, now it's
Oh, great.
Yeah, now we see
Very
it.
good. Very good.
Just enlarge it.
Okay.
Good.
So thanks a lot. Try to be brief. I will talk about the situation in Europe with gene editing regulation, and will directly. I chose these two pictures that trigger, in a way, emotions. On the one hand, the old emotions about GMO fear. We see here Ilse Aigner, the agricultural minister of Germany, already 10 years ago, with the big German retailers reassuring the consumer that everything is GMO free. And that is increasingly now being criticized because it's actually misleading consumers, because the EU directive from 2001 acknowledges that crops created by mutagenesis are also GMO, even though they're not regulated as GMO. So in this sense, there is now some pressure on this label. On the other hand, we have another positive emotion with Emmanuelle Charpentier, who won the Nobel Prize. She's French. She She does research in Germany, and she's a sort of an embarrassment for Europe at the moment, because the world celebrates her, but she can actually not have an impact on the continent where she's based. So first, briefly about the European GMO regulation, and then my study on what consumers actually want in Switzerland. And it's a revealed consumer preference study. Consumers actually had to pay with their own money to choose what they want. Then I talk about the problem with politicizing the precautionary principle, the gene editing debate in Europe, the question whether the European anti-biotechnology policy is undermining the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Finally, this what we have discussed before, science versus politics, and that is a new fact, and I call the Charpentier factor, which might change certain things, and then the concluding remarks. But to be brief, I refer to this EU Directive 2001/18 on the deliberate release of GMOs into the environment. That was the decision then of the European Union to apply a process-oriented regulation for GMOs, with the exception of crops created by mutagenesis. That is really the problem with the definition of GMOs here. Then there was already a WTO case against the European Union for not complying with the SPS agreement of the WTO, and the dispute settlement panel decided, yes, the European Union is causing undue delay. Of course, the SPS agreement, the phytosanitary and phytosanitary agreement of WTO, endorses the precautionary principle, but as a temporary measure, which gives you time to do more research on the topic and then make a decision later on. That's why the plaintiffs have not taken any retaliation measures, because they thought, yeah, okay, let's make them do some more research. Switzerland has had its own research program called NRP 59, spent 12 million on it. The European Union had spent altogether 200 million euros on risk research on GMOs, but it had no impact whatsoever on the regulation. The conclusion of all these research we have heard it before was, yes, there are risks, but we know them quite well already from conventional agriculture. Here you see the study I conducted with Swiss consumers. I gave them the freedom of choice. I picked cornbread as the product. One cornbread was made with organic corn, one with conventional, one with genetically modified one, and we didn't deceive any consumer, because that BT11 corn was imported from Spain. It was approved for human consumption in Switzerland, but not for cultivation. So we had this market stand in 5 different cities in Switzerland, 4 different cities, but 5 market stands with these compartments here where the different breads were offered. Then we had electronic cash registers to also register the emotional reaction. This was the genetically modified cornbread, large and big version, clearly labeled. And we also varied the price and the sales groups. And here you see the market stand where people were passing by, and it says cornbread delicacy. So it's not about whether they want to buy GM cornbread or not. We had to explain them actually what the difference is between the different product types. And we had a questionnaire to find out whether the political decision, the national referendum on the moratorium of GMOs, is compliant with what they buy. And we had this logo that says a sales group, a school class, and they had a clear protocol what they were allowed to say and what they were not allowed to say. And and they had also their own uniform. But here, some of the conclusions: market share of GMO cornbread was 20%, even when it was as expensive as organic. And then freedom of choice and transparency were welcome by most of them, according to the question. Package size was more important than the type of cornbread. When we looked at, when we applied the discrete choice model to find out what explained consumer behavior most. Attitudes towards GMOs were rather weak. There were hardly any negative reactions to it. So I published this in the Food Policy and the Journal Sustainability. The response by retailers was, well, these cannot possibly be our consumers. I wonder if that's really true. And politicians were saying, yeah, we just want to extend the moratorium, applying the precautionary principle and just ignoring this study. That was quite strange. In fact, when they extended the moratorium in 2017, again, my study was cited in the report of the Federal Council as a reason why consumers, and evidence that consumers would not buy it. In fact, conclusion was the opposite. But I was told back then by the Ministry of Agriculture in Switzerland that I would not know the difference between science and politics. So there is really a kind of abuse of the precautionary principle here. It is one of the most important guiding principles in environmental risk management. It should bridge the void in scientific understanding concerning risks of secondary effects, or the complexity of cause and effect relations, and give some time to do further research. The EU communication on the precautionary principle actually emphasizes that it should comply with the basic principles of risk management, which is proportionality, non-discrimination, consistency in the application of measures, risk-benefit comparisons, and minding new findings in science. So at the moment, Europe, the application of the precautionary principle in biotech regulation in Europe is offending all these principles. And the excuse is always consumers would not buy it anyway. But that's, my study actually showed they would buy it, they just don't give them the choice. And so there was also in Switzerland, we have extended our moratorium now for the third time in 2017. There was a report by the ethics committee on genetic engineering in the non-human area on the precautionary principle, and it basically said gene editing equals GMOs equals application of the precautionary principle equals a ban, justification of a ban. And you see the report here, they used all kind of pictures of accidents of nuclear plants, of oil spills, all kind of things which are unrelated to GMOs, but just to trigger this kind of fear factor. And one wonders to what extent this is really related to ethics. So the gene editing debate in the European Union was triggered with the decision of the European Court of Justice in 2018. Everyone's probably familiar with this decision to subject gene editing to the same regulation as GMOs, as in applying the old directive 2001, not making any exemption like with mutagenesis. There was, however, a big resistance in the media because there was wondering if we can comply with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, if sustainable intensification with the use of biotech is not possible. Uncertainty with regard to mutagenesis, which is even creating more off-target effects than gene editing. The traceability question, industrial concentration, which is likely to increase if new entrants, if new startups cannot really come with their new products into the market using gene editing. I published this article in Frontiers in Plant Science on that issue. And the unresolved question is really, are European retailers misleading consumers by using GMO-free label? That will be probably resolved next year. But yeah, if you look at the Convention on Biological Diversity, the intention was that hotspots of biodiversity in tropical countries will be protected in return for having access to technology transfer to make a sustainable use of their genetic resources, emphasizing the importance of biotechnology. The Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety was meant to enable a safe transfer of biotechnology for the sustainable use of genetic resources. But the African Model Law on Biosafety and Biotechnology, sponsored by Europe, actually ensured a ban through its politicized version of the precautionary principle. Now, there was also a report by the European Parliament, I mean, this Heubuch report in 2016, that sounded quite paternalistic. They said no support for the new Alliance for Food and Nutrition Security in Africa if GMOs are involved. This offends the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. It offends the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness that emphasizes the principle of ownership, and it's contrary to the UN Sustainable Development Goals on the Agenda 2030 when it comes to realizing the goals through sustainable intensification. So it's science versus politics, in my view. The basic lesson learned is that responding to emotion with reason is not working. But now we have this Nobel Prize winner, Emmanuelle Charpentier, which challenges these popular stereotypes about biotechnology, the white scientist doing some crazy things. She's a woman Europe can feel proud of, and the media response was very interesting in Switzerland as well as in France. There was some complaint that the current that they don't give, especially in France, where scientists would not have a future anymore. They could be part of the solution for all kinds of sustainability challenges, but France would not allow them to even stay in the country and do their research, which is embarrassing for France. In Switzerland, there was a long article in the Sonntag saying how absurd is our gene editing regulation when we know what the potential is, and we now have a Nobel Prize winner in Europe, which is not able to translate her research into sustainable action. So, and I believe with COVID-19, science matters even more, whether in agriculture or when in the fight against communicable diseases. Gene editing plays a crucial role in both areas. Would that be a wake-up call for Europe? That's the big question. There is at least a remarkable science on the side of the opponents, probably because there is now a counter-emotional factor which they don't know how to deal with. But here, some of the conclusions. I don't really have much time, I guess. But the precautionary principle as it is applied in Europe contradicts the spirit of the principles of risk management in many ways. And exporting a flawed regulatory framework to developing countries to prevent the use of agricultural biotechnology through pressure via access to aid and trade is not just morally dubious, but it's also contradicting the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. And my study showed European consumers do not treat labeled GM food products any different from other novel products introduced in the food retail market. And politicians just remain silent or just repeat the same thing over and over again, that European consumers would not buy it. So we have a similar problem like in the US with resistance to science in politics, but in a different way, I guess. There is really this misleading framing of the problem, the confusion of natural and sustainable, and then technology in agriculture being linked automatically to unpredictable risk. Since this debate is all about emotion and good stories, it will depend a little bit on Emmanuelle Charpentier if she has the courage to come up with a different story, because she has trust in public. That's a big asset, and we will see whether she will also become politically active. Gene editing has a great potential in effectively addressing the challenges in the banana cultivation, saving the popular Cavendish banana while reducing pesticides. Of course, there are only some proof of concepts at the moment. It's not a silver bullet, but can we afford to ignore one of the central platform technologies of the 21st century? That will be the crucial question. So there will be an ongoing review of this European Court of Justice decision, and maybe Europe will eventually accept the compromise that many countries already have embraced, namely that point mutations should not be subject to GMO regulation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Philip, for this most insightful and provoking presentation. Now we come to our last panelist, George Jaksch. George is the chairman of Biodiversity Partnership Mesoamerica. Maybe Philip, if you could get out of sharing.
Okay.
George, are you there?
Absolutely, yes. Ready to go.
So you have a long-standing career in the banana industry. Among others, you have initiated the World Banana Forum, and today you will speak about the collaboration, or actually its absence in the banana value chain, and what would be necessary to arrive at a sustainable solutions and biodiversity projects. Please, George, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you for inviting me to this excellent meeting. Yes, you did hear that I have worked in the banana industry internationally, and in fact, it was that experience of over 30 years of working in that field that showed me in some of my later years the enormous potential and space there is for collaboration, if you're willing to grasp that. And I repeat some words which Philip used a moment ago, which was, can we afford not to use the obvious solution? It may surprise you that somebody from an organization concerned with biodiversity is speaking to you. In fact, my experience in the banana industry led to that decision to help to found an organization dedicated to the conservation and restoration of biodiversity at a time when the loss of biodiversity is one of the great challenges that humanity is facing. Our aim is to motivate and support businesses to recognize the importance of maintaining, sustaining biodiversity and acting accordingly. That is what we do, and we are dedicated to cooperation, to sharing experiences, and to working in partnership with other interested organizations. Now then, let's get back to bananas, and I will say that we are, in the case of TR4 and the other difficult situations that banana farmers, and especially the export-oriented industry of banana production and shipping faces, whether are we not dealing with situations which could signify an enormous threat to the welfare of the people working in that industry, to the companies engaged in that, to the communities where food security based on banana and plantain consumption is so important, whether we are not facing a threat which is potentially global and potentially fatal, and we only need to look to places like Mozambique and Colombia to see that when TR4 becomes established, that signifies the end of banana production for the affected area and a huge threat to everyone in that region, as Miguel Dieter has explained. Well, TR4 is only one of quite a number of situations where there is a huge threat for banana production, either from enormous costs or from regulation. I refer, for example, to the prohibition of aerial spraying by the EU. And I believe that we, as those who are interested in the banana producing communities, need to be aware that we're living in a situation of a very high risk. And unless we do something, we know that the disaster will come. The only question is, where will it come and when will it come? There is, of course, also the market risk, as is evident from Philip's presentation. The consumers are no longer willing to consume products which are produced with situations of associations with very high pesticide use, environmental harm, and so on. So that is another big situation to consider. Now, we are really here facing one question. Can pre-competitive collaboration come to work in this arena? Because the solutions that are require such huge and coordinated efforts which go far beyond individual companies, far beyond even the production-oriented businesses, which need to include scientists and governments and all the many authorities involved in this field. My answer to that is pre-competitive collaboration on these important issues is definitely possible and definitely necessary. And I will refer to you to 3 examples where this has been occurring in similar settings. One in the case of pharmaceuticals, where major companies have been collaborating in the development of new products, new molecules, and nowadays also vaccines. Secondly, in the car industry, globally, you can see very high level of cooperation because the challenges have outgrown the capacity of individual companies to address them. And also an interesting agricultural example, the orange producing companies of Brazil, very substantial operations, have jointly founded their own collective research organization which provides services to all of the major producers. That seems like one fine example. Now, of course, one always faces the difficulty. Some have more solutions to offer, some have more research results, some have high investments previously made in research and in solutions. But that is a problem which has been very effectively overcome in the cases that I mentioned. That is entirely manageable. Now, I participated in the creation of the World Banana Forum some years ago, and I must say it was our hope that the World Banana Forum would create a platform which would find ways to bridge the gaps between the major companies and the interested parties. But really, this idea of creating one could call it a coalition of the willing, never really materialized. And one has to ask oneself, not so much why that happened, because that answer we know. It's because of the traditionally very separate and very competitive approaches to their activities of the companies involved. But on the other hand, it also seemed to provide answers in opportunities. And if that has not happened yet, perhaps the FAO is still, because it is the FAO which has been coordinating the World Banana Forum, maybe the FAO and the World Banana Forum can still muster the energy and the consensus to achieve collaboration of the kind that is necessary. We heard today during some of the presentations the immense costs to communities and the financial costs of failing to produce, of crop failures as have happened in the regions of Africa and elsewhere. Now, there is, I believe, maybe I now turn to potential solutions. The FAO has the authority, the skills, and the global outreach to become the messenger and the engineer that can create those collaborations. Because the hope could be that they would muster the financial contribution from the international donors, which is a sufficiently big inducement to invite the major companies to become partners with their respective shares of the effort. So that may be seen as a part of the solution. However, there's another factor which I believe could be encouraging, which is we have seen some quite significant changes in personalities and attitudes and business success among the major players. And the time may now be much better suited for the leaders on the business side to say, colleagues, we need to get together. I do know that one of the leading CEOs of the banana companies tried to do that some years ago, but failed. But again, there is a change happening. I say that hopefully. But on the other hand, the companies and those involved also need to, and the governments involved and the communities involved also need to realize that unless there is a significant change towards more sustainable and safer production systems, then in fact, the future looks very bleak indeed. And I would just end to say that from the perspective of our organization, Biodiversity Partnership Mesoamerica, to recognize the importance of collaboration to address the major problems of humanity at this time, I speak of peace, of climate change, of the destruction of biodiversity, for those major issues, collaboration is the only way towards a solution. And one must hope that even in such a practical arena as the production of bananas, that kind of thinking will prevail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George, for these insightful thoughts. And I would like to open now the discussion. So maybe first I would like to ask the panelists if you have questions, comments to the presentation of your colleagues in this panel.
No, but I do have a question for George.
Okay.
George, going back to our times in bananas, and I was wondering, is the organization doing anything on the market side to explore the acceptance by retailers of other varieties of bananas? We know that Lina presented it before. I mean, we know that there are a lot of other potentially commercial bananas, but we have basically educated or miseducated the consumers of Cavendish is the right one. You're muted, George. You're muted.
You need to unmute.
Yes, sorry. Yes, now I hope you can hear me. Yes, Roberto, that's a very good question. In fact, if you look back over the history of the banana business, there have been many attempts to introduce new varieties. The smaller bananas, the red bananas, that has happened. The problem has not been the failure to attempt to do that. I don't think that's the reason. For the banana companies, it would have been a huge plus to have developed additional products. But the consumer acceptance, or maybe more so the failure to accept this by the retailers, has, I think, been the major obstacle. So I would hope that there would still be a lot of scope for developing, and indeed it's going to be critically necessary to provide alternative products in the banana sector.
Thank you, George. Maybe Philip, would you like to react, or what the retailers actually could do to contribute to sustainable banana industry?
Oh, I mean, the retailers probably have become part of the problem. I mean, they have used sustainability as a marketing instrument, mainly focusing on consumer fears in Europe. I mean, all these other free labels like lactose-free or vegan products, they all build that into the sustainability report because for them, it's sustainability is a marketing strategy, and they managed also to integrate this understanding into our high schools about the natural is the sustainable and the unnatural is the bad one, and all these simplifications. We can find them in school textbooks as well today, and it's everything that is discussed with regard to sustainability in high schools is normative. What the student can do to become sustainable, how a sustainable lifestyle can be created, but this will not solve our global problems. I mean, just to have some niche products to feel good about yourself and to feel sustainable will not bring any scalable solutions. So I don't, at the moment, the retailers are still the gatekeepers, and it's very difficult to predict if these gates can once be broken, or there will be courage in the retail industry to really choose a different path. They are afraid themselves very much because they're afraid of having protesters in front of the supermarket. But I guess they are overestimating this fear, in my view. But yeah, it's an open question.
So thank you very much, Philip. Are there other comments, questions? among the panelists? If not, then I would like to invite Diego McCall. He has put a few questions in the Q&A section. Diego, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I
Yes,
don't know if you guys
please
hear
go
me.
ahead.
Right. So thank you. This was a very interesting panel. Very star-studded panel. Thank you so much. Yeah, my question was kind of in that vein where I don't think a lot of focus has been given to the consumer side of things. We've seen that despite the good security track record of most genetically modified crops and virtually no difference between gene-edited crops and conventional crops, the pushback we've seen, right? And I'm not so sure, I'm not optimistic about it. That would be my point. I don't know if anybody else has given thought to the market side of things. And also, just a quick comment, right? While I don't consider, Europe necessarily pushing its bioeconomy paradigms into developing countries, does seem something akin to the Cold War, where you're pushing paradigms into developing countries, and then the US, Canada, Argentina, Brazil are pushing theirs, right? So it seems like a clash of two worlds again. And in this new generation of genome editing, it just, to me, it seems like it's going to be a repeat of the first story, and then it's just going to keep on going. Meanwhile, poverty, climate change wreaks havoc. So I just wanted to see if the panelists had some thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Who would like to react from the panel?
Maybe I just like to quickly respond to Diego. I think, Diego, we face that on a daily basis. I think that what is being, if you want to underestimate it, is the influence of the EU on international regulations. So everything that the EU is doing is basically followed by Asian countries. Is something that is very closely looked at by Brazil. So I'm not sure that they are trying to influence the agenda or compete, if you want, in terms of standards. But it's definitely something that they may not be considering, that their position is used to be a benchmark for many other countries. So we can feel the repercussions in many of the decisions that are taken from a policy point of view.
Thank you very much, Roberto. Are there other reactions from the panelists?
Yeah, maybe I can add. Yeah, so what I see a little bit of change, in a current situation is a little bit change, because we all know that, the decision made in EU influence other countries, particularly the developing countries, in Africa as well as Asia. But when it comes to the gene editing, maybe I think everybody has learned a lot of lessons from GM side. So I think the people are both like the researchers, but as well as the regulators. I think they are more careful now. That's what I will say. And then they are, when it come to the regulatory guideline development or something, they are more science-based than influenced by some other communities. So like, for example, in Kenya, when they were developing the guidelines, actually they seek the views from all over the world, like including US, Canada, Argentina. Argentina is a very good example because they developed the first guideline for the genome editing. And they also involved EU and Asian countries, and they are coming up for their own guidelines, you know, for regulating the genome edited crops, you know, which they are very clear. Okay, it's not approved guidelines, but that's what is very likely to happen. That, you know, they are saying that, okay, if there is no foreign DNA integrated into the final product, the products will not be regulated. So there is no product which is in the pipeline like for immediate release, but I think that's what we are hoping, that maybe the situation might be a bit different with the gene edited product in comparison to GM. We are hoping for
Lena.
better there.
Yeah, thank you. And as we are now approaching the end and 5 p.m., I would like to give each panelist the chance for a last 1-minute statement. Miguel, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course. Just to say thanks for all the speakers, and just probably a small clarification when I put it banana as a silver bullet at the end. I said that we should take advantage, we should explore all the opportunities the new technology are bringing. But again, we should not forget that at the end, we should put those bananas in the field, and then we need to deal with the production systems, with farmers, typology, etc. That was more or less my way of thinking. And again, many thanks for this invitation. It was really incredible. I learned a lot. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Philip, you need to unmute.
Yeah, I found the discussion very interesting too. And with regard to the trend in Europe, I believe there are some promising developments. For example, the young Germans in the Green Party started they wanted to have a discussion within the Green Party to talk about gene editing, and it was quickly smothered by the elderly Green activists. But it shows that something is moving. There is also a young European network of scientists who try to engage the public in discussions. We have seen that all before, of course, but I think the COVID crisis could also lead to a change of thinking, which will hopefully include the retail. I mean, the retailers, they, I don't believe, if there is a change of mind in the public, if the media increases with these articles challenging these stereotypes, eventually it will have an impact. But of course, it's also, you never know how long it takes. But for example, a banana, if you once have a gene edited banana, which with no insertion of a foreign gene, that could save tons of pesticides, then I wonder which environmental activist would oppose this just for ideological reason, because then it would reveal that it's not about the environment, it's about being right. And yeah, the discussion will go on, I guess.
Thank you so much, Philip. Roberto?
Yes, thank you, Isabel. Thanks again for the invitation. I think the only comment I want to make is in times of COVID, we cannot underestimate the value of science. And what you guys are saying, I mean, it's something that we have been facing for a long time. Let's fingers crossed that this situation at least open the eyes of many people that are still questioning the value that, as just Philip mentioned, it is there. So yeah, I hope we can keep on developing solutions for the industry. And once again, I mean, we have to keep on looking at what is being done in terms of digital agriculture, what I think is going to be very complementary to a better system. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you so much, Roberto. George?
Yes, many thanks for this interesting meeting. I would have one thought to offer, which I think that those who are involved in banana production, especially export-oriented banana production, should hopefully very soon be willing to recognize pre-competitive collaboration as a huge opportunity to drive progress towards more sustainable production, towards higher market acceptance, but also to reducing costs. That's my comment.
Thank you very much, George. Maria Andrea?
Isabel, thank you for the invitation. Just to add, the technology or the developments are already in place. So we have to keep working on approach the science to decision makers, media. For the scientists, we have to be more vocal and we have to communicate what we are doing so people can understand the technology. And for us as consumers or industry or scientists, we have to also to try to open the conversation, try to talk about this and try to inform people about this technology. Don't be afraid to be in a debate, or if you have the scientific base and the key message, I think people will understand this technology.
Thank you so much, Maria Andrea. Now we turn to Lena.
Thanks, Isabel. I think it was really great to interact with all panelists here. So I think my message is very clear, you know, with all this production constraint and then the climate change and everything. I think like we need to use all the tools available in the toolbox. But then I think as a researcher, I think it's also our responsibility to, you know, to make public aware, you know, what these products can have the benefits, and then I think also work in hand with the regulator so that, you know, so that we can ease out the path for the commercialization, and then maybe work on the seed system, but also maybe for the science-based regulatory guidelines so that the product can reach to the farmers as well as the consumers to benefit, particularly the smallholder farmers in developing world. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lena. And now we have a very last question from Romano De Vivo, and it's going to Miguel Dita. Please, Romano.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you very much for the excellent panel discussion. I would like to pose this question to Miguel. Next year, the Alliance will launch one of the major conferences on biodiversity involving scientists, companies, and policymakers. How do you think this topic should be included in next year's broader discussion? Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Romano. This is really a big question. So we start to discuss it already internally, because of course many people still think that they are opposite. I mean, one is opposite to the other, and then we think that there are different situations, and every situation deserves probably a different, let's say, observations. We just start to discuss this internally, because on one side we're promoting biodiversity, for other side we also dealing with and working with gene editing. So how to bring those kind of things together, I think that it deserves more internal discussions. I don't think they are opposite. I mean, we can work with those two, but probably for bringing for a global agenda, we really need to ruminate and digest it more.
Thank you so much, Miguel. And we have come to the end of this webinar and most interesting panel discussion. I would like to thank all the panelists for their insights, their contributions, and also the organizers of the ICABR conference 2020 to make this possible. I would like to wish you all a nice evening,